So hey everyone, welcome to the latest video. Just wanted to kind of put something out ASAP really. So this video is probably going to be somewhere around about 15 minutes long, and the point being is really just to kind of grab as many of the highlights, different scenery, try and get as many of the different riders kind of included in the footage as possible. So there will be more videos. I'm not 100% sure how I'm going to put it all together. The reality is we've probably got something like 6.5 to 7 hours worth of footage kind of recorded across the 3 days from 3 different cameras. So I just need to really have a think about how I can make best use of that footage. For those who watched kind of the preview, I did think about doing a kind of day 1, day 2, day 3, but the reality is there's a hell of a lot more footage from kind of day 1 and day 2 in terms of different perspectives and recorded on different cameras. So that's kind of the thinking with this video. So hopefully, for people who actually took part in the ride, you managed to spot yourself. You don't feel too self-conscious, because it's amazing how many people say, I always thought I looked pretty good on the bike, and then I saw myself. For me personally, best few days I've ever had cycling. It was great to get somewhere else. Although, not to be too moany, if I never see another cycle path again, then I'll be absolutely thrilled to bits. We were warned actually that, I say warned, I guess we were given the heads up that actually the cycling infrastructure within Holland and Belgium is fantastic compared to the UK, and yeah, there's no denying that. But they don't like you riding on the road. They want you to actually ride on the kind of designated cycle areas. It is very cleverly done. It's kind of block paves and painted roads and such like. But as you get into the residential areas, it is block paved. My hands took a bit of a hammering because the Venge isn't exactly friendly and all that comfortable. But that was my only complaint really, kind of over the 3 days. And actually, you do kind of miss the hills when you get out into those very flat areas. The ride was split over 3 days. It was around about 290 miles. Day 1 was from Colnbrook to Harwich, so over on the east coast of the UK. And again, as I touched on in the preview video, we were actually heading across the top of central London. We set off around about 8 o'clock on the Wednesday morning. And so, yeah, we were heading into London during rush hour and kind of going through central London during rush hour. So that actually ended up being probably the slowest 20 to 25 miles of my entire life. I had actually arranged to finally catch up with somebody who I've been talking to for kind of the last 4 or 5 years. Yeah, he had a probably 2-hour wait in a coffee shop waiting for our group to actually kind of ride past or make it to that first few points. So yeah, great to finally meet you, Baldy, and hopefully it's not another 4 or 5 years before we catch up again. So that was probably the biggest challenge really of day 1, actually getting through central London. After that, as we got out into kind of Essex, heading toward Chelmsford, very much a rolling kind of course, really rolling terrain, which was fairly enjoyable actually. Anything we went down, we pretty much went back up, so it wasn't too many, I guess, really tired legs at the end of day 1, which was really good. So then we were onto the ferry overnight. It's probably 15, possibly closer to 20 years since I've actually been on a ferry. I guess that kind of kicked things off really in terms of the theme for the next 2 or 3 days, and that sleep was pretty hard to come by. So broken sleep was something I already kind of expected, and so it didn't really cause too many issues. The only thing is actually day 2 was a little bit further than day 1. So day 1 was around about 106 miles, and day 2 came in to be just over 116. So personal record for me, furthest that I've ever cycled in one day. But actually it wasn't the hardest ride that I've ever done. The pace was very sensible. I think some people would probably say it was slow, certainly slower than what I would normally ride. But having said that, if we're doing a 3-day social ride, then who really cares about the pace anyway? It's more about, or at least for me personally, it was more about kind of taking something in that was different to where I've ridden, you know, for the last sort of 5-6 years, which has been solely in the UK. So it was great to kind of get out of the country and actually experience something different, because you always hear that, you know, different countries have a completely different you know, kind of take and almost a different respect really on their kind of cycling infrastructure, and yeah, that's absolutely true. You know, if we compare Holland, even like the rural areas, you know, where we actually docked versus London, yeah, they're worlds apart, and we've got a hell of a long way to go. But that's a whole nother video, and actually probably will be another video as well as some other observations about the UK, Holland and Belgium. So day 2, 116 miles, very flat, and actually very, very low power output for the day. Primarily because we were pretty much heading due south and the wind was behind us for all 116 miles. So we left Hook Holland round about 8:30, 9 o'clock. We were a little bit late getting off the ferry, and then we finally arrived around about 7:30 in the evening. So arrived actually at Brussels, very close to Brussels airport, where we spent the night in a hotel. So yeah, that's obviously what, nearly 12 hours, maybe a little bit under from when we actually set off, but there were a couple of stops kind of along the way. And actually day 2 was the most eventful as well, where there was I need to come up really with a kind of snappier name, something along the lines of 4 weddings and a funeral perhaps, but this would be something like 3 punches, 3 car pile up, and then I just need the final kind of snappy line. So I'll put that one out to the audience as to what we come up with for that. Those who are on the ride will know about kind of the other sort of events of that particular day. So yeah, the longest distance, and therefore, you know, I guess more opportunity for things to happen. So other things to talk about on day 2 was actually our chaperone, who's a female professional rider, and again, fair play to her. So we were allegedly the elite group, but she ended up changing a puncher, and there was kind of 6 or 7 guys all stood around watching her, which was pretty entertaining. Made even more entertaining by the fact that Group 2 actually went past us, kind of had a quick look, and yeah, just carried on going. So we did kind of get into a bit of a race situation with Group 2, but it wasn't really. I guess it was all just a bit of fun. And actually Group 2 beat us to the 100-mile mark on both day 1 and day 2. So I think they're basically classifying themselves as the winner, which I'm not going to argue with, because some of the discussions that took place were absolutely hilarious, with some of the more competitive people from our group at least talking average speeds and, you know, time in the saddle and all that kind of thing. Yeah, it was all a bit of a laugh. And pretty much in good taste as well. So I think when you're riding kind of 3 days straight like this, it's important that you kind of have that, you know, I hate the word, but banter, you know, bit of gentle ribbing and such like. It certainly makes the you know, lack of sleep and the short evenings, minimal downtime, it certainly makes everything go that little bit quicker. And you know, if at any point you're sort of getting to the stage where you think, I'm getting close to sort of having enough of this, I'm shattered, yeah, it just picked everybody's spirits up, so that was good. For me personally, and this is all tongue-in-cheek, I'm just going to put that disclaimer out there, but I actually lost a sprint against our professional cyclist by only a tyre. So had I gone for the 28s over the 26s, yeah, I reckon I'd have had her. And also if she didn't say go when I was still in the middle of changing gear. So I'll get my excuses in. But having said that, did manage to take a stage win, which was a summit finish. Even beating the guy who actually took the award of being the count of the 3 days. So this is the guy who sat in his coffin at the back and then just came to life when there was a hill. Personally, didn't have a problem with it. I thought that was very smart racing. As I say, it wasn't really a race. But do you know what? Above all, it was great company and fantastic experience. And yeah, despite the lack of sleep, a little couple of niggles here and there, things like the heavy traffic through London. Do you know what? Actually, as soon as we got onto the following day of each of those kind of niggles from the previous day, all totally forgotten. And if anybody's looking at trying to do this type of thing, then I would highly recommend the route actually. Yeah, maybe make a couple of changes around central London, but you know, that's a small thing really, and isn't something that necessarily in hindsight I would have changed, maybe would have just been a little bit more prepared for. And day 3 was for me something which I hadn't really expected, and what I mean by that is I kind of thought that having spent the 2 previous days split into 3 different groups and kind of, you know, only seeing each other, I guess if we kind of passed each other on the road or whatever, day 3 we actually spent the first half riding in our 3 separate groups, and then the second half completely as one. The course lended itself to that. Nobody really seemed frustrated that the pace had dropped a little bit, or equally, you know, from the 3rd group that the pace had upped a little bit, and it was actually really good being able to really just do at least, you know, half of that last day altogether, and to be able to ride in all together as well. We actually arrived probably about 2 or 3 hours ahead of kind of the main travelling party from the UK, who were I think in the main, if not all of them, actually flying over from a couple of different airports. So there wasn't the big kind of welcoming committee. We arrived in as a group, bikes down, drinks, and everybody, you know, kind of sitting down, catching up and talking about, you know, a whole load of stuff, not only kind of the previous days, but people, you know, questioning whether or not their bike fits quite right. And we just had some good, you know, some good cycling conversations, which was really enjoyable for me. Also gave me opportunity to talk a little bit about my channel as well to some people. So I have noticed that the subscribers have gone up just in kind of the last 24, 48 hours. So if that's anybody who kind of took part in this ride, this is a bit out of the norm, you'll see from kind of the previous content, but there will be more videos actually linked to this 3-day ride. So Friday evening then was kind of a group dinner. As expected, it was a very early night, or it should have been. The place where we were, Lommel, pretty small town, 1 taxi company. The taxi office actually seemed to close around about 5:30, 6 o'clock in the evening. We struggled for a taxi to actually the location of where we were going to have dinner, and then, well, that was a struggle. We then actually didn't manage to get a taxi back from the dinner location back to the hotel, so ended up being around about a 6k walk, but again, you know, good company, and I still maintain that actually that 6k walk on that Friday evening actually kept my legs feeling, well, not only loose on the Saturday, but also now as well at the time of record. Okay, so, right, let's wrap things up here. As I said at the start, that's just a very quick look, you know, 10-15 minutes at kind of the initial footage, aim being really of trying to get as many riders in as I possibly could. I do have more footage. I've already got a couple of ideas of kind of future videos. So as well as getting back to my normal release schedule, I am just going to start pinging, you know, a few more of these London to Lommel rides out, different discussion points, you know, different rider techniques, even some tips as well. That, you know, I have talked about of kind of 1 or 2 people that then maybe the wider group actually may benefit from. So yeah, definitely look out for that. As always, please pop me a big thumbs up on here, subscribe if you don't want to miss any more of the future videos, and thank you very much for watching.